Why do you wish to sail west?
To open a new route to Asia. Asia is the richest kingdom, the land of spices and gold. At the moment, there are only two ways of reaching it. By sea, sailing around the African continent, the journey takes a year, or by land. But the Turks have closed this route to all Christians. There is a third way. By sailing west across the ocean sea.
The distance is unknown. It's said to be infinite.
Superstition. I believe the Indies are no more than 750 leagues west of the Canary Islands.
Can you be so certain?
The calculations of Toscanelli, Marin de Tir, Esdras.
Esdras is a Jew.
So what's worse?
2 minutes. Already you're a dead man.
For telling the truth?
Yes. You are burning people for less.
Here in Oklahoma has been some time. I believe this is my third time here.
Yes, sir.
Third time. How many times you been in Oklahoma?
No,
This your first time here?
not my first
The
time.
second time?
No, not my first time. My third time, third or fourth time.
I like what I'm seeing. I see the school being decorated. Brothers and sisters in order. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. We got a lot to cover today. So get your Bibles, pens, and papers. The Bible is the oldest records on earth. And yes, older than the Gilgamesh epics, but the Gilgamesh epics are not historically accurate. Somebody think, well, the Gilgamesh epic is older than that. Give me Isaiah 34 and verse 16, please.
Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 16. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read.
So we've been commanded to seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. The book of the Lord is the Holy Bible. Not the Gilgamesh epics, not the Quran, not the Book of Mormon, not the writings of Confucius or Buddha, not the ISIS papers, but the Holy Bible. Read it again.
Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail.
No one of the prophecies in the Bible shall fail. Not one. Okay?
None shall want her mate.
And you cannot mate the Bible with any other book. You cannot mate it with the Gilgamesh epics, or the Quran, or the writings of Confucius, or Buddha, or the Book of Mormons. Right?
For my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them.
So from there, give me Ecclesiastes 12 and 12. I'm going to show you the problem with blacks and Latinos. What is our problem as a people? We have a big problem in that we're not seeking out of the book of the Lord. We are reading every other book but the Holy Bible. And when we read the Bible, we tend to read it through the eyes of our oppressors. That has been the problem from day one. This is why most of us believe that Jesus Christ is a Caucasian man. You ask our brothers and sisters scattered, what did Christ look like? They all say a Caucasian man. But nobody has biblical evidence on it. Why? Because they have not read the Bible through Israel's eyes or God's eyes. They've read the Bible through the eyes of their oppressor. Read that for me. Ecclesiastes 12:12.
Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 12. And further, by these, my son, be admonished. Of making many books, there is no end.
Of making many books, there is no end. That's why the books I named earlier, you're going to continuously have books written about God in the Bible. Right?
And much study is a weariness of the flesh.
Much study of those other books, God says, is a waste of your time. Right?
Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. For this is the whole duty of man.
We have never learned our purpose on earth. Read that bottom precept again.
Fear God and keep his commandments. For this is the whole duty of man.
So the whole duty of man is to fear God and keep his commandments. That is our purpose on earth. We've never learned that. We grow up in society with no destiny. God is giving us a calling, and we have a chosen and elect destiny as his chosen people. So from there, I'm going to start off, and I want to look at some slides. I want to start off with a slide of 2nd Ezra 13. Who's controlling it? You got it? Is room go? Oh, okay. There's a lot of misunderstandings about how the indigenous peoples came throughout the Americas. There are a lot of books out there about how the Latinos came to this side of the world. A lot of misnomers about the Bering Straits. We're going to go show you through what the Bible says about the migration here. Remember, 722 was the Assyrian camp. That's when they went into slavery. Around 580, something like this young man said, is when they were being released from under Persia. Yeah, everybody got that? Sure. Alrighty now. So now let's start with the first slide of the 2nd Ezra chapter 13. Let me take a look at it. Okay. John 8:32, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. This is what our people have not known for past 500 years. From 1492, with the conquest of the Americas, we as a people have not known the truth. Come on. 2nd Ezra 13, start at verse 40.
2nd Ezra chapter 13 and verse 40. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land.
Now, it says 10 tribes because the tribe of Dan was included in the registry. Everybody understand that?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the same time of O'Shea the king.
In the time of Hosea the king. Go ahead.
Whom Salmanassar, the king of Assyria, led away captive.
Now, what time period was that? Brothers? Anybody know? 722. See, I gave you the opportunity to redeem yourself. That was around 722. Go ahead.
And he carried them over the waters. And some came, they into another land.
Another land was the land of Assyria. Go ahead.
But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen.
Now notice verse 40 is talking about them going into slavery. Verse 41 is them talking about leaving slavery. So guess what? You have, what's 722 to 586? You can do the math.
140 something years.
You got 140 something years later between them two verses. Read verse 41 again.
Verse 41. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwells.
So in verse 41, who was the king at that time that released the Israelites from captivity? Yes, you.
King Cyrus, the Persian and Mede king.
Right, very good. King Cyrus. Okay, king of Persia and Mede. Now, verse 42, please.
Verse 42.
No, 41 again, I'm sorry.
Verse 41. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country.
Notice this part. They wanted to go forth into a further country. Watch this.
Where never mankind dwelt.
They wanted to go to a land where nobody ever lived before. This is the key about the Americas, because when Columbus, they called this the new land. Okay? The newfound land. Watch this. Read on.
Verse 42. That they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river.
So now God has told Ezra how the tribes would come to this side of the world. It says, and they entered into Euphrates, meaning Euphrates River. Go ahead.
By the narrow passages of the river. For the Most High then showed signs with them, and held still the flood.
So God holds still the flood, meaning the raging rivers, oceans, right?
Till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half.
Now God tells us the length of time it took them to get from Assyria to this side of the world, a year and a half. Go ahead.
And the same region is called Assyria.
Awesome. The name of this land over here, they call it Awesome. Go ahead.
Then dwelt they there until the latter time. And now when they shall begin to come.
So from the top, we hadn't left it, but Ezra is saying we will begin. Remember, to mobilize millions of people does not take a day. You had to get what? You had to get ships. You had to get provisions for the ships. That took a lot of organizing. Many times we will read this and go, oh, it took a day. No. Imagine if millions of us were to get on ships to go somewhere. That's not a day's event. It might take a couple of years to organize everything properly, to make sure everything is right. This is what we're reading here. Go to the next slide. Okay, this is 722 BC. Solomon, king of Assyria, took the northern kingdom, the Israelites captive, and brought them to Assyria. Okay? So now you have, I believe that's Jehu, if I'm not mistaken, that's Bible better. Who's that?
That's Jehu.
Jehu, right, thank you. Next slide. This was King Cyrus. After Assyria was conquered, King Cyrus gave the Israelites liberty to return to Jerusalem in order to rebuild again. A small remnant returned, however, a great majority went abroad. That's what we're reading about in 2 Ezra 13. This is how the Israelites took counsel among themselves, okay? All right. Deuteronomy 33:17. Many times people say, well, what's written in the Apocrypha is not written in the Bible. It is written in the Bible. Get that in Deuteronomy 33:17. Watch this. The Most High told Moses what the 10 tribes, what would occur with the 10 tribes.
Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 17. His glory is like the firstling of his bullock, and his horns are like the horns of a unicorn.
When the Bible talks about unicorns, it's making reference to rhinoceros, right?
With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth.
So that's the part you want to look at. With them he shall push the people together to the ends of the earth, meaning the other side of the earth. Read.
And they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh.
So God told Moses, Ephraim and Manasseh would lead a large remnant of Israel to the other side of the earth. He told Moses that when we came out of Egypt. Moses knew this thing. Go ahead.
And of Zebulun, he said.
No, I'm sorry. The tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, I wanted to read this. That's what I was saying. The tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, which are the Puerto Ricans and the Cubans today, brought the northern kingdom together to venture forth into a new home. Issachar was given the blessing to navigate the 10 tribes through the river and the sea, according to 1 Chronicles 12:32. Can we read that? 1 Chronicles 12:32. The Aztecs were very well known for understanding navigation, astronomy, things of that nature. This is what the Bible said about the tribe of Issachar, which are the Mexicans of today.
1 Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 32. And of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the time, to know that Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment.
Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, we're going back to 2 Ezra 13 again. Whereas here it says the Israelites, primarily the northern kingdom, set out to leave. Abiel wrote 11. See, I've got to get on Abiel, not you, Abiel. So Abiel. He wrote 11. Set out to leave the other nations, the heathen, via the Euphrates River. So if you see on the map, the Euphrates River, remember Assyria was this area that you see from Assyria down there. You got Turkey and above. That area was called the Assyrian Empire. So now you see the Euphrates River is showing you the water route on how the tribes traveled. So remember, it said they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river thereof. Go ahead. Next slide. The diagram shows the path that Israel took in order to leave the multitude of the heathen. The Most High held the river and the sea calm. So if y'all can see where the star is on the far left, that's where, right there. And the purple line is where you see the Euphrates River travels down along Africa. And let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, it held the floods. Go ahead. It was rough. See? Right beside Africa, on the other side, you have South America, Central America, North America. So the Bible teaches us how the tribes got to this side of the world. So it's no, you don't got to try to figure it out. God already gave it to us. We have to put down all the other books about the Bering Strait saying that the Latinos is, what they say, they part Chinese. That's not true. That is not true. Next slide, please. And you know, as a matter of fact, can y'all find a clip on
1492?
Yeah, can y'all find that clip? Yeah, 1492. You go on YouTube, you'll find it. Okay.
I want to say something real quick. So as you see the bishop going through his history, the other nations, they understood it. They understood this history, and it's something that's sitting in the face of people, but because of religion or whatever else they followed, they ignored. This is how Christopher Columbus came to this side of the earth. Remember, at that time, allegedly they thought the earth was flat, BS, but they knew. Christopher Columbus said, I read the prophet Ezra, so we're going to watch it. And they put in movies for you all to see, for us to see, but old people don't pick up the Bible, don't read, they're not educated, and they're not taught to the Israelites, so they wouldn't investigate. But then the nations knew that, and they used it to come to this side of the earth. The same way our forefathers came here, they used Ezra's writing to know, okay, we're going to find this side of the earth by his writings.
I just texted it to Azariah.
He just texted to Azariah. So for Northern Kingdom brothers and sisters learning, this history, you come from a great line of people, great history. And it's time for us to reawaken them, reawaken all people, that we are all the same people, known as the Israelites.
And to your point about the Bering Strait theory, because that's what they're now calling it, is a theory. I actually did a paper a few years ago in school about it, and I found research that there are a lot of scholars now that are starting to take what the Apocrypha says, and they're showing how it's impossible. We couldn't have walked through that. It's not like it's a one-day journey through they said the ice was solid. You got to really, like we say, Bering Strait, you got to really envision this thing. It's a frozen tundra where nothing grows and nothing lives, and supposedly millions of us walked across that and made it and dispersed in this side of the world. But there are a lot of scholars that are trying to push that Bering Strait theory out the way, but they're not allowing it. They're like so married to that they keep holding on to that. But if you do research, there's research out there now that's what we've known because of the Bible, that they're trying to basically push that now as the new theory.
You ready? So this is from the movie Conquest of Paradise. There's no volume. Let's turn up the sound. If y'all can get this movie, it's called 1492, Conquest of Paradise, starring Jean-Luc Depardieu, a famous French actor. Let me know when the volume's ready. Okay. Listen good to what Columbus says to the Franciscan priest. Abio. Yes, Jeremiah.
Shalom, Bishop. Shalom. Also, with that Bering Strait theory, they also call it the Clovis Land Bridge. And I was taking this history class, and they tried to explain they got bones found around the Bering Strait to try to justify it, but then they couldn't explain why there's older bones down by South America. Right. It was on the same book.
Okay. Are you ready? Yeah, we're ready. We're waiting on you, bro.
Why did you wish to sail west?
To open a new route to Asia. Asia is the richest kingdom, the land of spices and gold. At the moment, there are only two ways of reaching it. By sea, sailing around the African continent. The journey takes a year. Or by land. But the Turks have closed this route to all Christians. There is a third way. By sailing west across the ocean sea.
Can you pause that for a second? He said, go back to the map real quick. By sailing west. By sailing west. Can you back to that map real quick? They think the Bible is a book of fairy tales. I don't know what. Go back over right there by sailing west. Now, mind you, if you go, you see where the pink is at up there. Just point to the pink area. Okay, west of there would be where? Go west. No. Go west to the left. Sailing west will bring you into where? Into the Americas, right? Okay, go back and play the clip now.
Go back just a couple seconds.
The distance is unknown.
Go back a couple
To
seconds.
be Christians, all Christians.
There is a third way. By sailing west across the ocean sea.
The distance is unknown. It's said to be infinite.
Superstition. I believe the Indies are no more than 750 leagues west of the Canary Islands.
How can you be so certain?
The calculations of Toscanelli, Marin de Tir, Esdras.
Esdras is a Jew.
So what's worse?
2 minutes, and already you're a dead man.
For telling the truth?
Yes. They are burning people for less. The men you're about to confront have no emotion.
So we saw that. So he said, by the calculations of Esdras. And the priest tried to say, well, Esdras was a Jew. Remember, there was an inquisition against the Jews during that time. So Columbus came back and said, well, so was Christ. He was a Jew. So they cut the argument. But the point of the clip is that the scholars know that the Indians on this side of the world, how did Columbus know there was another side of the book of Esdras? And the book of Esdras tells you the 10 tribes of the nation of Israel are over here. So that's why when you read many books, Columbus did not come by himself. He came with military. He came with an armada. He came with what they call conquistadors. Why? Because he was coming to conquer. He was not lost. Oh, I'm confused. Well, is this India? Did that mention anything about India? So the scholars put things in movies, a little bit of knowing that we're going to be asleep. Then we go to school and say Christopher Columbus discovered America. He got lost on the way to India and he found it by accident. That's a lie. That's how they keep us stupefied, dumbed down. The Bible is the greatest history book on earth. And it's our book. Okay, let's go back to the slides now. Let's see what slide. We were at Arsworth, right? We were looking at that slide of Arsworth. Right there. You know, I can't see. Can somebody read that for me? Somebody that's next to it.
Arzareth, the name of the land beyond the great river, far away from the habitation of man, in which the 10 tribes of Israel will dwell, observing the laws of Moses until the time of restoration. According to 4th Esdras, chapter 13, verse 45, Columbus identified America with this land.
So you'll see that, and this is taken from the Jewish Encyclopedia. They know blacks and Latinos, we will not pick up the Jewish Encyclopedia to read it. They'll give us ghetto books, dumbed down books, and talk about how we were savages and all of that. And we go, we needed the white man's technology. No, the Bible, this Jewish Encyclopedia, that's when me and y'all was out back in the day would go to the bookstores. We would never go to the black sections or we'd go right to the Jewish section. And they would say, what are you doing here? Are you sure you want this section? This is the section we want to be in. Because we knew the history, the important stuff was in the Jewish section, not in the black section or the Latino section. That's where you get lies all up in there. Let's get the next clip.
Say the next clip.
Next slide on there. Okay. Hosea's prophecy. Hosea 10. Give me that, Hosea. I think it's chapter 11, verse 10. Is it chapter 11? Remember, Columbus said by sailing west, right? That was the third route. Is it Hosea 11 and 10? I'm shooting from the hip. They should tremble.
They should walk after the Lord. Yeah, 11 and 10.
Is that it?
Hosea chapter 11 and verse 10. They shall walk after the Lord. He shall roar like a lion. When he shall roar, then the 10 tribes shall tremble from the west.
He didn't say then the 10 tribes.
And then the children shall tremble from the west.
Then the children shall tremble, meaning the children of Israel shall tremble from what? the West. The reason you want that verse is because, remember where were we at originally? The East. How did we get to the West? Meaning the Western Hemisphere. The Bible's telling you that the Israelites would be on the Western Hemisphere on this side of the world. Everybody with me so far? Sure. All right, all praise. Let's get to the next slide. Okay. Hosea's prophecy and further northern kingdom went off into idolatry. This is what happened when you read many of the history books about written by the conquistadors under Ponce de Leon. You have Hernan Cortez, that demon. He wrote about how the Aztecs and the Incas were dealing with idolatry, witchcraft, demonic rituals. Next slide. Give me Hosea chapter 8, verse 13. When you examine the pyramids throughout Mexico, Peru, they are very similar in structure to the pyramids in Egypt. And many times people say, oh, aliens came down and built. No aliens, nothing. These were the Israelites. The reason you have pyramids in Egypt and pyramids throughout Mexico and Peru is because the same people built them. Watch this. Read that, Hosea 8:13.
The book of Hosea, chapter 8 and verse 13. They sacrifice flesh for the sacrifices of mine offering.
Now, when you read the history books along in these temples, where they had the great steps leading up, Hernan Cortez chronicled, many of the Jesuit priests chronicled that the Aztecs, the Incas, were sacrificing people in these temples. So read this again.
Verse 13. They sacrifice flesh for the sacrifices of mine offering, and eat it.
And what?
And eat it.
And eat it. Go ahead.
But the Lord accepted them not. Now will he remember their iniquity and visit their sin. They shall return to Egypt.
When it says they shall return to Egypt, it means they shall return to captivity. That's all that means. Next slide. Okay, these are some of the drawings that the Jesuits had done regarding the Aztecs and the Incas and what they witnessed. And they show you many horrors that was amongst them, dealing with cannibalism. That's what we just read in Hosea 8:13. Next slide, please. Okay, y'all see these are these were photos taken inside some of the temples, many things written on paper. Next slide. Okay, these are more drawings. Next slide.
Hosea chapter 8, verse 14. For Israel has forgotten his maker, and builded temples.
See that? And buildeth temples. That's what I was making reference to earlier about the temples throughout Mexico and Peru. You got the Aztecs erected pyramids like their forefathers did in ancient Egypt. And now some of these Mexican words I cannot pronounce. Tio, if you do not pronounce them, disregard. Them right there on the slide. Teotihuacan. I see all these X's. I can't pronounce this stuff. Do you know how to pronounce it? No. See, you've been around Judah too long. Teotihuacan at Yuxmal, Tocana, Chiapas, Pico de Oaxaca, Tikal, and Guatemala. Okay? So you have many temples. So the Bible prophesied that we would build temples. Okay? Not aliens would come build temples. The Israelites would build temples. And it said, for Israel hath forgotten his maker. We forgot the truth of who we are. We forgot the one true God. Next slide. Okay, here's some photos now. I can't pronounce that word. Teotihuacan pyramid today. We need, Lord's will, we take some trips out there, right, Captain Joshua? Captain Parr?
Yes, sir.
Let's go. Next slide. It says Uxmal. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it. Uxmal pyramid today. Go ahead. These are temples. Chiapas temple today. Next slide. Tikal in Guatemala today. Okay. Go ahead. Next slide. Okay, let's go to Lamentations chapter 5. So the history of the Latinos, the indigenous peoples of the Americas, is in the Bible. You will not find this history in your Christian churches. Don't waste your time. The churches were established to do the same thing the school system was established to do, dumb us down and make us slave workers. wage workers. Wage slaves, thank you, I like that. Lamentations chapter 5, verse 1 and 2.
The book of Lamentations, chapter 5, verse 1. Remember, O Lord, what is come upon us. Consider and behold our reproach. Our inheritance is turned to strangers.
See this? It says our inheritance is turned to strangers. Believe it or not, the lands of the Americas throughout North, Central, and South America is the inheritance of the 10 tribes of Israel that God gave to them. Read on.
And our houses to aliens.
You see that part? Our houses to aliens. America, white America, calls the Mexicans what? Illegal aliens. The Bible calls the white man aliens. Do y'all see that? Read verse 2 one more again.
Verse 2. Our inheritance is turned to strangers. Our houses to aliens.
So the Bible says aliens, meaning an outside race would come and take our inheritance. Next slide, please. Read it, verse 3, Lamentations 5 and 3.
Lamentations chapter 5, verse 3. We are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as widows.
Now we have some images here. If y'all ever do some research about the boarding schools, you can just go to YouTube. You ain't got to read a lot of books. On YouTube, they have many interviews of Indians, what we call Indians today, what people call Indians, but we know they're the tribe of Gad. How they are testifying what happened during the Indian boarding schools. How when they went in, they cut their hair, they made them change their clothes, made them change their language, their speech, and they changed them from what they call Indians to white people. That's what they did. They made them Americans. I'll just word it like that. Yes, no, of course.
And at that time, and prior to that, they said they were civilizing them.
Right.
They said they were uncivilized people, so they were bringing religion to them. Prior to the conquistadors, that means conquerors, coming to the Americas, this side of earth, they were not speaking Spanish. Spanish was a tongue brought to them. It was a language brought to them. When the Spaniards came to the side of the earth, the people who they were called savages, and I'm not talking about just North America, I'm talking about South America also. They had great kingdoms. They had vast land. They had running water into their cities. I mean, you understand, back then, it wasn't like today. They had hundreds of thousands of people living in cities where they had irrigation, water flowing in, and sewage flowing out. So they weren't savages running around with a loincloth, jumping from trees, selling lands for beads. They were teaching us that in this time period to make the so-called Hispanic men look like savages. Like they make the black men, they look like what? Like pimps and drug dealers, like we don't have homes and families and take care of ourselves. So we can look to the other nations as the epitome of all that's right. What separates the so-called Hispanic man, so-called black man, and so-called Native American Indian man? What?
Borders?
Borders and what else? So-called,
The language.
Languages. We were all enslaved by so-called white Frenchmen, white Spaniards, and white Englishmen. We're all in the slums and ghettos today. Why? Because we disobeyed God's commandments. What's happening now is God is raising back up his prophets in the earth because the churches can't do it, or they can't do it. And we're tying back the link that the Lord said in John. He said, I have sheep that's not of John 15, I think it is, or John 10. I have sheep that's not of this fold. Give me that real quick, do you mind, Bishop? Is it John 10?
No, I think it's John 10.
Say John.
16.
John, I don't know what 10 comes 10 to 16. 10 to 16, that's it? Watch this real quick. St. John's 10 to 16.
St. John, chapter 10 and verse 16. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold.
When Christ said, other sheep I have, which is not of this fold, meaning the fold was the fold that was in Jerusalem. Because primarily who went back to the land? It was Judah, Benjamin, Levi. So-called Negroes, Haitians, and so-called today Jamaicans or West Indians went back to Jerusalem. But you had those scattered brothers that were scattered throughout the earth that came over to the Americas, that was up in Greece and Rome in these areas. Christ said, I have sheep that's not of this fold. And what did he say else?
Them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd.
He said, them also must I bring in, that they might be one fold and one shepherd. Now remember, Christ was crucified and went back to the Father. Whose job was it to bring those other sheep back into the fold in today's time? It's us. To wake up old brothers that's throughout the earth, let them know, don't get fooled by the color of our skin because one man is darker than the other, that we're different people. We're showing you through prophecy that we are the same people today. That's your job, brother. That's your job. That's your job. That's our job, to raise back up the 12 tribes of Israel. And that's what we're going to read. That's what we're reading about right now. So all of us are in a timeless period of this world right now that's monumentous. In other words, we're going to create history in this earth. You're making history right now. God's children are waking up. And we're not going to be divided by a language or a tone color of a skin. We're going to come together under Christ in the keeping of his commandments. I'm amazed right now what's happening and watching this. And I've seen it so many times, and I'm still, to me, it's incredible that God is moving the spirit of you so-called Negroes and you so-called Mexican, you so-called, you Issacharites, and you Zebulon to wake back up on this earth. We got a mighty job in front of us. Bishop?
Next slide. Okay, back to Lamentations 5. Very important. Lamentations 5 and 4.
The book of Lamentations, chapter 5 and verse 4. We have drunken our water for money. Our wood is sold unto us.
This is very important, especially in terms of oppression, because that's what it's talking about, oppression. Remember verse 2 said, our inheritance is turned to strangers. Aliens have what? What did it say about aliens?
Aliens. Our houses to aliens.
And our houses to aliens. The strangers, which are the aliens, is talking about the so-called white man. Now, so if somebody decides they want to challenge you biblically, yes, it goes back from the time of Babylon. Yes, it goes back to the time of Greece. Yes, it goes back to the time of Persian Mede. Yes, it goes back to the time of Rome. But guess what it also goes back to? Spain, America, France, Portugal. All these things happen. So verse 4, one more time, look at this.
Verse 4. We have drunken our water for money. Our wood is sold unto us.
There's another movie y'all need to look at. It's called Even the Rain, about the indigenous people in Bolivia and how the government in Bolivia was charging them because they shut up all the wells. They closed them so that the people had to go buy water from them. Then what the Indians did in Bolivia, they started to collect the rainwater. The government of Bolivia decided to tax them for collecting rainwater. You see how evil this is? The movie is called Even the Rain. It brought forth a great revolution throughout Bolivia. So, write that movie, look at it. It's very important for you teachers on the street. Okay? So verse 4, one more time.
Lamentations chapter 5, verse 4. We have drunken our water for money. Our wood is sold unto us.
The very wood of the lands of the Latinos, the Indians, what they call Indians, which are really the Israelites, they sell it to them now. I want you to really think about it. Imagine this. You are rich. I come into your house, take what belongs to you, and then, in fact, I kill you. And you have children. Then years later, your children are begging for bread. And I say, oh, I'll give you some welfare, and here's a little bit of water for you. And you're so what's the word? Indebted to me. But meanwhile, I'm a demon. Because little do you know, I killed your mother, I killed your father, and the house that I'm living in is your house.
And then tell you you can't steal from me after I robbed it. Listen, why do we think like that today? Why do people think like that today? Why? Because the same man that has educated you in religion and whatever is the same man that enslaved you. Why do we think like that? Because we departed. God said, because we departed from his commandments, that he's going to punish us. So the same people, it's called Stockholm. We've been robbed and raped, and then when we bring this topic up, and we're only repeating history, it's not like something that we thought up, it actually happened. What happened? Oh, you're racist. We're not racist, we're just repeating what has happened in the earth. And we're repeating it to wake all people up to realize that we must, as a people, come back and keep in God's commandments And all this will turn around. It will turn around. Yeah.
And this is still happening today. There's a documentary called The End of Poverty, all right? And it goes into how Central and South America is so full of resources and how they're still subjugating them there. But this specifically brings a thought to mind from that documentary, because what they do today is, if you know anything about the South America, it's rich in resources, coal, wood. That's why, they go there. That's why the rainforests are being cut down and everything like that. They're in there pulling all those resources out. What they do, though, is that they teach them how to harvest this stuff. They use the workers locally and pay them slave wages, all right? They work for hours on end. The video shows you that they don't even have shoes. And there's like tennis clubs next to there because, Americans go there and build stuff. But they teach them how to process all these resources and export them. But they don't teach them how to refine them. Meaning, they'll teach them how to cut the wood down, make the logs, and send them out. But they don't teach them how to make furniture and things like that. And then what they do is they sell the stuff back from them. They import it from Europe, the finished goods, when they have the ability and the manpower and the resource right there to build it. But what they do is they sell it back to them at 4 times the cost if they would have made it there. So they don't allow them to export the finished product. They just take the resources in its rawest form, teach them how to harvest that and send it out, and then sell it back to them in the form of finished goods.
That's a very excellent point. Like he said, the movie is called The End of Poverty. I believe that's on YouTube for free. Is it?
They took it down.
Oh, they took it down? Right. But they can rent it, right?
Yeah.
You can rent it. And there's a scene in there about, how throughout Central and South America they have coffee plants. And in the movie they showed the Indians collecting the coffee beans and all of that. And they'll give them like a quarter for a huge sack. Then they'll export it. Then they'll send it back in Cafe Bustelo. Things. Have you ever seen those? The cans of coffee ground? Freeze dried. And they sell it at a price that the indigenous people is hard for them to purchase. But meanwhile, they picked it, they planted it, but they can't benefit from it. Next slide. Okay, Lamentations 5 and 5. Read that.
Lamentations chapter 5, verse 5. Our necks are under persecution. We labor and have no rest.
When you examine history, many times people they make the mistake of thinking the first slaves were the blacks of the 1620s. That's not true. When Columbus came to Hispaniola, Santo Domingo, 1492, that's when the slavery of our people began on this side of the world. 1492. Okay? It says our necks are under persecution. We labor. When you examine the books, what's the name of that book? What's the book we always look at? It has the drawings in it. No. Yes. The Destruction of the Indies by what's his name?
Bartolomé de las Casas.
Bartolomemos? Whatever. Y'all know what I'm saying. But in it, they show you how the Spaniards forced the Indians to slave labor for them, to collect gold. And if you did not bring back X amount of gold, they not only cut your hands off, they will cut your nose off. Can you imagine that? Your mother's nose getting cut off her face because she didn't bring back X amount of gold. Or your father's hands being chopped off. This is what look at the chronicles of the conquistadors. They show you the Jesuit priests took very good notes on what happened. Next slide. Next slide. Abiel, next slide. Okay, verse 6. Read that for us.
Lamentations chapter 5, verse 6. We have given the hand to the Egyptians and to the Assyrians.
So notice when it says we have given the hand to the Egyptians and to the Assyrians. Remember, the book of Lamentations was written by the prophet Jeremiah. Okay? So he's really making reference when it says Egyptians and Assyrians. He's just using terms for captivity. Because the same captivities that happened from Assyria happened also in Babylon, happened also in Persian Media, happened also in Greece, happened also under Rome, happened also under Spain, happened also under France, happened also under America, happened also under Europe. The same harsh conditions, that same oppression. Verse 7.
Oh, let me finish out 6.
Yes.
Verse 6. We have given the hand to the Egyptians and to the Assyrians to be satisfied with bread.
See that? So you have to go to your oppressor to be satisfied with bread. You want food, clothing, education, you must go to your oppressor for these things. That's what Jeremiah is prophesying about. Come on.
Our fathers have sinned.
So yes, don't think that our fathers were so righteous. We were wicked. We were breaking all God's laws. That's why God brought the oppressor, the so-called white man, against us. One more time, verse 7.
Our fathers have sinned and are not.
Because they were killed. Go ahead.
And we have borne their iniquities.
And today we've borne their iniquities. We are committing the same sins as our fathers did in the past. Next slide. Oh, wait, go back to that slide. Go back. If y'all look, you see the Jesuit priest on the left, and you have, I believe, which king is that? Where's Josiah at? Oh, he's talking. Atahualpa, thank you, that's his name. And he has the Christian cross up to his face, wanting him to accept Christianity for a less painful death. And he asked if I'm not mistaken, he asked the Jesuit priest, when you die, where will you go? He said, in heaven. And then the king of Atahualpa, he said, then I'd rather go to hell. He said, wherever you go, I don't want to be with you. Next slide, please. Okay, Lamentations 5 and 8, please. Let's read that.
Lamentations chapter 5, verse 8. Servants have ruled over us.
See that? Servants have ruled over us. That's how important our people are. We are not the servant. We might look like we're servants today. We are God's chosen people. And as God's chosen people, the prophecy says that our servants have ruled over us. That's right. The white man is our servant.
That's right.
I want y'all to understand that. This is Bible talk. This ain't coming from hate talk. This is Bible talk. It says servants have ruled over us. Go ahead.
There is none that doth deliver us out of their hand.
There is none that doth deliver us out of our hand, out of their hand. All the great leaders throughout from North America. Remember, you had great black leaders that rose up. You had civil rights movements. You had not just, we always talk about the Panthers. We always talk about SNCC. We always talk about, give me some more, the Nation of Islam. But there were others. You had AIM, the American Indian movement, under Leonard Peltier. You had the Brown Berets, which were the Mexicans, who wanted to join with the Black Panthers to rise up against the oppression. Nobody talked about that either. There were many, many great Latin revolutionary groups who were sick and tired. Yes.
Young Lords.
Come on.
The Young Lords.
You can say it on the mic. Oh, you ain't got a mic?
No, I got a mic.
The Young Lords.
Yes.
Also, they were the Ephraimite, the Puerto Ricans.
That's right. Exactly. The Young Lords, which were the Puerto Ricans. Exactly. Come on.
Verse 9. We get our bread with the pearl of our lives because of the sword of the wilderness.
Right. Next slide. Go ahead. Read.
Verse 10. Our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine.
Right. And that's twofold meaning there. Because yes, we were going through a famine. Yes, like this was the what is that called? The Trail of Tears. Okay, under Andrew Jackson. That demon. Okay, right. I was here in Oklahoma. All right, and they were starving us, our people out. Read. Next slide. What?
It stretched from Florida to Oklahoma. Yeah. The Trail of Tears stretched all the way from Florida to Oklahoma. They didn't walk.
Next verse.
Verse 11. They ravished the women in Zion and the maids in the cities of Judah.
So that's why I want to go back to the history. You have to know. The lamentation, Jeremiah was prophesying what Babylon would do. And remember, watch this. Deuteronomy 28, is it 46? To let you know it's not just talking about Babylon. Watch Deuteronomy 28, verse 46. Watch what it says.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign.
Meaning all the curses that would come upon our people would be upon us for a sign that we are the Israelites. Right?
And for a wonder.
And for a wonder.
And upon thy seed forever.
See that part? And upon our seed forever. So it didn't just happen under Babylon. The same wicked oppression happened under Persia Media, happened under Assyria, happened under Greece, happened under Rome, happened under Spain, happened under America. Everybody understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right, next slide. Lamentations 5 and 12, please. Read that.
Verse 12. Princes are hanged upon their hand.
Read it again.
Princes are hanged upon by their hand.
Princes are hanged up by their hand. Go ahead.
The faces of elders were not honored.
Now, if you notice the slide on the left, what the conquistadors did from Hispaniola, Central America, North America, they rounded what they call the Indians up by 13s. And said it was in honor of Christ and the apostles. Because remember, you had 12 apostles, Christ made 13. So they would hang them up by 13s, okay? Like you see the one facing to the far right on that slide. That one would be in the position of Christ, and he's facing the other 12. See that right there? Yes, yes. This is what they did. You have to look at the histories of what they did to us. Then the babies of the Latino women, what became a Latino, they would smash upon the rocks. See that one? These are drawings that the Jesuits did, and they would light us fire under our feet and kill us like that. But if you talk about this, they say, oh, you're racist. No, we're telling you Bible truth. We're telling you historic, accurate facts. It's not based upon hatred, it's based upon truth.
Bishop. And the facts that we're telling is facts that they recorded.
Right.
We didn't record these facts. We were the ones getting hung. It was them themselves who kept records. That's why so when you read Bartolomé de las Casas' books and his writing, those was actually his diaries that he wrote. It wasn't a fictionary tale. He was writing his day in, day out life and what he was visually seeing with his eyes going on. So when you know what, a lot of times, as the bishop was saying, when you bring out these points, they want to disregard or label you as a racist or a hate group or whatever, because they don't want to deal with the truth of the fact of their history. And the only reason we bring it to light for is so old people are educated to understand what happened to them, and then make you go back and look at yourself based on God's words of who you are. You understand the parallel that the bishop is making with the Bible and actual accounts showing you that the Bible is a true book because they acted out what God prophesied was going to happen. Everybody understand that, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, good.
Hey, real quick, get Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 28, verse 46. The bishop just read this a second ago.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 46.
Come on.
And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
Upon thy seed forever. These curses were put upon us. Why? Because we broke God's laws. These curses located in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, pinpoint who the children of Israel are. Read verse 47, because sometimes it seems whenever we bring out, like we're going through right now, this Bible truth prophecy showing you who the real Jews are, who the real Israelites are, our people find it hard to believe. We've been destroyed that much to where we're showing you the history, historical facts. We're showing you in the Bible. Everything is lining up. But still, our people have a hard time digesting the fact that they are the greatest thing on this earth. Verse 48.
Verse 48.
Come on.
Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger,
Come on.
and in thirst, and in nakedness.
This really happened. We were forced to serve our enemies, the Bible said. Whether you was Hispanic, whether you was African American, whether you was a Native American, you had to serve your enemies in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness. Anything you wanted, you had to go to your oppressors. Go ahead.
And in want of all things.
Read.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck.
This is why we received yokes of iron around our necks, because they wanted to control us. They had to control us to keep us from trying to fight back, to struggle. So they broke us down. He's going to put a yoke of iron on our necks until what?
Until he have destroyed thee.
Until he have destroyed thee. That's why it's so hard trying to get our people to wake up. Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, when you actually bring out historical facts, they think it's too good to be true. No, that can't be us. We read about all the people of color in the Bible, and they still think, oh, there's no way. I've been watching the Charleston Heston films all my life. Jesus has been white on my wall since I was a little boy. But yet and still, the Bible tells you what Christ looked like and who you are. We got to come back to this Bible. That's all I have, sir.
Let's go to the next slide. Okay, Lamentations 5:13, read that.
Lamentations chapter 5 and verse 13. They took the young men to grind, and the children fell under the wood.
When it talks about they took the young men to grind and the children fell under the wood, it's talking about slavery. That's what it's talking about. Grind means work. They made us labor for them. We were the first, what's that term? The first commodity on Wall Street. We were the laborers to bring forth white wealth of today. We were the workers, the indentured servants, not even indentured, the enslaved servants. They weren't indentured. They took the young men to grind, and the children fell under the wood. Now, these are also, again, drawings of how they made the Indians carry wood for them, for the white man. How they made us labor. And they put, look at the yokes on the left. See, do me a favor, point to the on the left. See, there's a big chain of wood down, 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 down on their necks to keep them bound to each other. See that right there? Yes, that right there. They've had them bound by their necks, like we were just reading Deuteronomy 28 about the yokes of iron. Okay? So this is what we're seeing here. Okay? Next one. Next slide, please. Verse 14.
Verse 14. The elders have ceased from the gate, the young men from their music.
Okay, give me the next slide. You see the next slide?
That's the last one.
Oh, that's the last one. Okay. From there, give me the next section of slides of Deuteronomy 28. Now, are they able to see this on Periscope? Well, I haven't seen nothing on Periscope. Oh, not on Periscope? Okay. We got to figure that out.
Turn it towards you.
Yeah, how about we do that? Next slide, not that one. Okay. We were talking about Deuteronomy 28, making mention of it. Now we're going to go through it. Okay. Deuteronomy 28 is the chapter called the blessings and the curses. From verse 1 through 14, when we came out of Egypt, Moses told our forefathers, if you keep God's commandments, all these blessings will come upon you and overtake you. When you get to verse 15, there's a big but. But if you break God's commandments, these are the curses that shall come upon you. So we obviously are not living under the blessings right now. So we want to focus on these curses. This is what we want to read now.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all the commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day.
Here it comes.
That all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake.
So that's the part we want to look at. That all these curses shall come upon us and overtake us. Why? Next slide, please. Verse 16 continues, then cursed shalt thou be in the field. We always talk about the cotton fields. We got to start talking about those sugarcane fields throughout Brazil, throughout Colombia. We rarely talk about those things, but that's what was happening to us. Yes.
I'm glad you said that too, because and the banana fields in Central America, in Honduras, there's a small town called Taylor, and that's where my mother grew up. And the United Fruit Company came into there, built houses for the people, and put them to work there, and stripped the land of its natural resources. And after it depleted the land's resources, they pulled out. It crippled that town. They stayed there for about maybe 50 years and literally raped the country, raped that town, just raped it. And after it pulled out, took their money, and the whole place is desolate right now. Desolate. Wherever, and make it clear, wherever Esau, or the white man, has gone, he has raped every land he has put his hand throughout South America. It's amazing that people are so dumbed down because of religion that you cannot see. Name a country, name anywhere in South America. Who controls South America? Not the natives of the land. They have raped every land, any place they touch, they have spoiled. They have spoiled the land for their own benefit.
and leave the native people of the land, and they went to Africa and did the same thing. They have raped every land. That's why, who's the president in South America that died? Chavez. He was so adamant against America because he knew what they were doing. He won no part. He called Bush the devil. You see, he knew what they were doing. And they, you know what? When you speak up against them, then you become the axis of evil. When you speak the truth of what they were doing, they wanted to control their own economy, control their own resources. They would not allow that. So it says, "Cursed thou be in the field." The Lord said that because God said, because you did not want to serve me, you so-called Negro Hispanics, now you're going to serve your enemy. I'm going to explain why it says your enemy. Anybody that sells you to slavery is your enemy. They're not your friend. Friends don't sell friends into slavery. But you can't tell them that. Oh, that was a long time ago. You know, you guys got to forget that. Do they forget their history? 4th of July? Arbor Day, or whatever you celebrate? No. Labor Day, Independence Day? No. We must remember old days, like today, the Sabbath day. Keep God's day. God, you mind, Bishop? Isaiah 58. We was reading this the other day on Periscope. 13. Let's see what God said if we remember old days, the holy days that He was given. 58:13.
Isaiah chapter 58 and verse 13. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing the pleasure of my holy day,
from doing thine own pleasure, that's what it says.
Thy pleasure on my holy day,
from doing your pleasure on His day, you know,
and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable, and shalt honor Him, not doing thy own ways.
You know what your own ways is? Is today, the Lord's day, you're out there barbecuing, you're out there playing basketball. The Lord is asking one day that you put aside everything and you come and serve me. And in return, what is God giving us? Read.
Nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thy own words. Then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth.
God said He will bless us and put us back in rulership if we do what? Apply His law. So when we said curse in the field, God cursed us because He gave us everything and we chose, we were not satisfied. We wanted to learn the ways of the other nations. We wanted to follow their customs like Christmas and Easter and Halloween, pagan, witchcraft. And they taught us and fostered us in religions. They forced it upon our people. Like the bishop was showing you about that man, what's the state? Yeah, that man, I can't pronounce his name. That they were forcing, you understand, Christianity wasn't something that you chose to follow. It was forced upon you. You had a choice. Either you serve the white image of the lie, Caesar Borgias, or we will kill you. It wasn't something that you chose today. We willingly celebrate or follow these days. But God said we were going to be cursed in the field because of our disobedience. And that's why we don't control none of our resources today.
Can I say something? And to your point, Bishop, when you're talking about, we got to remember these things, I want to bring out 2 points. That things like this are still going on. Because oftentimes we'll talk about the historical aspect of it and say, right, it's easy for us to, well, not us, but it's easy for people to say, oh, well, that was then, this is now. 2 points I want to bring out. The first one is specifically in Puerto Rico, and Domino Sugar built its syndicate, its sugar syndicate, all right? There was a man by the name of George Allen, who was the first governor of Puerto Rico after the Spanish fought with the U.S. and took it away in 1898. And he went in there within a year, changed all the policies. Now, this isn't right. Slavery is abolished, right? There's no slavery. He went in there and changed laws, changed regulations, and set everything up so that it could be like what we read in Lamentations. And he built what Domino Sugar that you use today was built off the back of so-called Puerto Ricans. All right? He raped and spoiled that land. And if you look at Puerto Rico today, the effects of what happened not 100 years ago are still affecting them now. The economy's going down the drain. And as a commonwealth, the U.S. isn't doing anything to help it. Supposedly it's property, but it's not doing anything. People are leaving the island in droves because there's no work. The tax rates are incredible, all right? They had them there in a form of slavery. It wasn't with the chains anymore, but in a different way, building the sugar empire in Puerto Rico. And then the other thing I want to bring out, because you mentioned something about the influence in South America. Years ago, they used to call it the School of the Americas, all right? Now they changed it and they call it the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation. That's a political influence that the United States government exerts in Central and South America. And they put it under the guise that since this is our neighbor, we have to influence the policies there so that it benefits them. There's even been movies made on the things that they've done there. Deacon Yawasop talks about what happened when they used like advanced weaponry in there, they experimented. All the different leaders that they put in there, they were involved in putting in, what was the guy from Dominican Republic? Trujillo. They trained them. They trained these leaders to put their interests in South America and Central America. They bring them to this school here in the States. It used to be called School of the Americas. Do the research. If you look it up, it comes up with a new name because the School of the Americas has such a negative connotation on it, all right? And they train these leaders here, and they put and take down leaders in Central and South America that are for their influence. They're responsible for all. So if there's someone there that they say is a despot, is communist, is this, he's a tyrant, chances are, 9 out of 10 times, they went to the School of the Americas, they trained them there on that policy, and when either they go against America or it doesn't suit their interest anymore, they set up guerrilla tactics to depose them in there. They send the CIA in and they do all that stuff. So these things are still happening today. Let's not just think of when we were there with chains on our necks. It's still going on today. So you can't forget.
So that's similar to with Manuel Noriega.
That's exactly, they were responsible with him as well. And they trained him in torture tactics. A lot of the recent genocide, I forgot the name of the documentary we saw at your house, Bishop, that it talks about that, with all the different, why so many so-called Hispanics migrate here, and they still do in large numbers. And a lot of it was influenced and set up by the things that the School of the America and the United States government influenced over there. This is public domain information. If you search it, you will see it. It's not conspiracy theory stuff. It's out there. There's testimony of it. And the genocidal leaders that they put in there to kill their own people, it was all under their influence.
That's some heavy stuff. Let's see the next slide. Okay, these are back being cursed in the field, like it says in verse 16. Go ahead. Cursed shall be thy basket and stores, verse 17, our businesses. Okay, go ahead. Cursed shall, who's reading? Come on, Pop.
Verse 18. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thine kind,
increase of thy cattle,
and the flocks of thy sheep.
And the word kind, K-I-N-E, refers to cattle. Go ahead.
Curse.
Next slide. Go ahead.
Verse 19. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in.
Cursed shall you be when you're born, when you come into earth.
And cursed shalt thou be when thou goest
when you
out.
Go out. You're born a slave, you die a slave. Born a nigger, die a nigger. Born Hispanic, you die Hispanic. Never knowing the truth of who and what you are. Never knowing your true history. Come up. Next slide.
Verse 20. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly.
So meaning destroyed as a people, destroyed as a race, destroyed as a nation, right?
Because of the wickedness of thy doing.
Why? Why were we destroyed as a nation? Because of the wickedness of thy doings. Don't think we were righteous people. That's why I took us earlier. Remember we were reading about in Hosea 8, verse 13 and 14 about the pyramids throughout Mexico and Peru. They weren't being righteous over there. They were sacrificing each other. So we were doing many of the same evil things our ancestors did. So God said, I'm going to raise up other nations against you. So here we are, under America, the United States of Babylon. Come on.
Whereby thou hast forsaken me.
Next slide. Okay, these are examples of cursing, vexation, and rebuke. Go ahead. Next slide. Okay, cursing, vexation, next slide. All right, verse 21.
Verse 21. The Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land, whether thou goest to possess it.
So when you read the history about the Aztecs and the Incas. It wasn't so much the Spaniards or the conquistadors that conquered them initially, but it was pestilence. It was disease. It was things like smallpox and other plagues that the Bible prophesied the Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee. Like they gave blankets filled with smallpox to the Native American Indians. Got them sick. That's how they were able to conquer us. Just like, guess what? You might read that and go, well, that was back then. What about now? What about the Zika virus? Why is it primarily attacking people of South America? Zika, when you look up the Zika virus, it was patented in 1947 under the Rockefeller Foundation. How did it get out? How is it attacking the Latinos throughout South America? Making babies' heads not grow. Bodies are growing, but heads the size of golf balls. The AIDS virus, Ebola, all throughout under the CDC, Center of Disease Control. Is that the right name?
Yeah, Center for Disease Control. Yeah.
Yes. Next slide. Like now, they want to give us all these vaccines. They said if you're in the 7th grade, they sent a letter to my house. Oh, you have to get vaccinated for this and that for my son. Then my daughter's in 12th grade. Oh, she got to get vaccinated for these 2 things. Ow! What is all these vaccines for? Ow!
Now, think about this. This point you're making. Go back and what's that verse again? The verse before?
Verse 21?
Yeah.
Verse 21. The Lord shall make thee pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land.
The Lord said, and who's he going to do about the hand? Remember the Lord said that your enemies shall rule over you? He used your enemies to bring us diseases. Okay, yeah, you guys are just, this is just too much for me. You guys are just making this stuff up. Has nobody ever heard of eugenics? The bishop just talked about under the Rockefeller regime. He helped Margaret Sanger, that's named Sanger, right? Sanger. And the whole purpose behind the eugenics was to kill off the undesirables, which are you so-called Hispanics and Negroes behind it. Nobody heard of the Tuskegee experiment? You didn't hear what was going on in Puerto Rico back when they were sterilizing the women? Tell them they was going for dentistry work, free dentistry, and was sterilizing when they put them under. This is documented stuff. Now, wait a second. Why, and this happened within the last 50, 60 years, why would you trust the same people that enslaved you, that has a pattern? You got to read a book called Medical Apartheid. Now vaccinate you. To be the ones that's going to administer so-called medicine to you. You want to be healed, you be healed with the word of God. Now, I'm not, we're not promoting to not go to doctors. Don't be foolish. Don't be foolish with it. But understand something. Be aware and be cognizant of the destruction of your people. That they actually will poison you. They have poisoned you, and they have admitted that they poisoned you. That now, and I never heard that Zika virus. This is new to me. But it's not far reach. It's not like some harebrained scheme we're talking about. This has happened to our people, where they injected you with diseases, syphilis, and sat back to watch it manifest in your body, to take it home to your wives, to pass it around your community. God said this all has happened to us because of our disobedience to the so-called Hispanic man and the so-called black man and Native American Indian man. It's high time we come out of this mindset of trusting in this world, trusting the words of God. God told you this was going to happen. And how do we avoid this? Apply his commandments. Plain and simple. That's the solution. Because we can talk about these things, but there's a solution to this. And it's a simple solution. Repent.
Yeah. Next slide. Next slide. You see the next one? Okay, verse 28, verse 23. Read that. Deuteronomy 28, verse 23.
Verse 23. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thy feet, under thee, shall be iron.
When you look at the movie Django, which came out, was it last year?
A couple years ago.
Or year before. They show you the slaves had those brass bells over their head, the runaway slaves. Like the first 2 photos on the left. Then with the scripture that says, your earth that is under thee shall be iron, refers to the iron shackles that was put upon us as well. So this verse here, just be cognizant that this is twofold. It goes into, yes, the blessing and curses of heaven and earth, no rain on your land and things of that nature, but also the enslavement of our people. Next verse, next slide, I'm sorry. Next slide. Next slide. Wait, go back. I like this one. Deuteronomy 28, verse 25. Read that, please.
Verse 25. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies.
We were smitten before our enemies, before the conquistadors, before the English and the French. Go ahead.
Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them.
Watch this.
And shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
This is the part where a lot of people don't want to accept. Go to the next slide. Watch this. It says we will be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. Now this slide right here is strictly the slave trade from Africa to the Americas. But prior to that, from 1492, there are documentations of Columbus bringing thousands of slaves from Hispaniola, Cuba, Ponce de Leon, Hernan Cortez to Spain. Nobody want to talk about that part of history, though. No, let's just deal with this part here, Los Negros. This is how they divide and conquer us. Next slide, please. Verse 29. Read Deuteronomy 20, verse 29.
Verse 29. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways.
So the Bible says we will not prosper in our ways, meaning prosper as a nation of people. It's not talking about, many times you talk about that, somebody will go, you have rich blacks and rich Latinos amongst us, but those are individuals. The Bible's talking about us prospering as a nation. It says we would not prosper in our ways as a nation. Read.
And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee.
See that? And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore. So the Bible's prophesying about the oppression of our people. So it's not hate speech. It's Bible truth, Bible talk. So now we talk about civil rights movement. Many of those images you see from the 60s is relevant for today. You see it in St. Louis. You saw it in Ferguson. You saw it in Baltimore. You see it in many places. Next slide, please. Okay, verse 30.
Verse 30. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her.
That's talking about when the white man was raping our mothers and our sisters. Go ahead.
Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein.
Our people built up North America, Central America, South America, with fabulous homes that we were not allowed to live in. Go ahead.
Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof.
The vineyards that our people have throughout Central and South America, even here in the North, we would not benefit from the grapes. When it's talking about grapes, it goes into the vegetables, the fruits, the things of that nature. Next slide. Read.
Verse 31. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from thee, before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee.
You see that part? Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Many times black people like to say, where's our 40 acres and a mule? The mule is the ass. The Bible says it will not be restored to you. Go ahead.
Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them.
Now you might think that's only talking about from the time of Jerusalem, but watch. Next slide. Do y'all see this? This is from the early 1700s, 1800s. How when they conquered the Americas, they took the cattle, the buffaloes, the oxen, and they were slaughtering them by hundreds of thousands. That's why in the images, if you can point, you have the white men standing on top of the skeletal remains of the oxen, the sheep, the goats. Go to the next, see the next one on the right? He's sitting on the hides, okay, of the cows, of the buffaloes. Next slide, please. Verse 32, read that.
Verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
This happened with the blacks as well as the Latinos. Our sons and our daughters were given to another people. If you don't know the history, ask yourself, where did you get your last name from? Read.
And thine eyes shall look and fell with longing for them all the day long.
Our eyes looked and fell with longing for the children all the day long. Come on.
And there shall be no might in thy hand.
We had no economic might or military might to recover ourselves as a nation. Next slide. Okay, verse 36. Read that.
Verse 36. The Lord shall bring thee, and thy king which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known.
If you didn't realize it, we had kings amongst our people, like King Atahualpa, which was in Peru. We had kings throughout North America, Central America, South America, okay? Even from the coast of Africa, we had our own kings we had set up. The Bible says, the Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which thou shalt set over thee. When you read Christian commentaries, you teachers, listen good. Christian commentaries will only go as far as talk about King Zedekiah under Babylon. When the Babylonian king conquered, was it Zedekiah? Yes. But it goes far beyond Zedekiah. That's why you got to know what happened after Zedekiah. What happened on this side of the world? The same curses. Read.
And there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone.
I said we would serve other gods, wood and stone. You have that famous stone statue of Jesus on the far right in Brazil. Our people down in Brazil honor that, worship this thing. But meanwhile, our people that's so busy praying to this idol are in the midst of the worst poverty on earth. You ain't seen no poverty till you go down to Brazil like that. Living in what's the name
favelas.
Of that movie?
They call them favelas.
Favelas?
Yep.
City of God. Look at the movie City of God. I must have seen that thing 5 times. Excellent movie. You just got to do a lot of reading because it's in Portuguese. You got to read the subtitles. But it's an excellent, excellent movie. They give yourself some visuals so you can understand what you're reading. Like, see the one in the middle? Many of our people today are wearing that. I know in New York, a lot of our Latin brothers are wearing that. So we will worship other gods made of wood, made of stone. On the left, you have a wood carving of the false image of Jesus. On the far right, you have a false carving in stone of the false image of Jesus. Next slide, please. Okay, verse 37. Read this.
Verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whether the Lord shall lead thee.
I want you teachers to understand this verse right here. This is talking about change of identity. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword, meaning you would forget who you are, you would forget your identity, you would forget your family name, your family background. Watch the next slide. These are astonishments. Look at our people today, walking with their pants below their butt. Our women, I won't even comment. Wow, what the hell is that thing right there? It's like a good God Almighty. Look at that thing. Let me see the next slide. So these are examples of proverbs and bywords. Remember, the Most High called us Judah, Benjamin, Levi, Simeon, Ephraim, Manasseh. But when we were conquered and made slaves, they called us blacks, African American, West Indian, Haitian, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Mexican, Dominican, Colombian, Brazilian, Chilean, Peruvian, Paraguayan, Uruguayan, Guyanese, Surinamese, Ecuadorian, Bolivian, Guatemalan, Costa Rican, El Salvadorian, Venezuelan, Argentinian, Panamanian, Honduran. They're Native Americans. These are their proverbs and bywords. Apache, Blackfeet, Cherokee, Cheyenne, Chickasaw, Chippewa, Choctaw, Colvin, Comanche, Cree, Creek, Crow, Lenape, Huma, Iroquois, Kiowa, Lumbee, Navajo, Piatti, Potawatomi, Ute, Yuman, and others. Next slide, please. So now, also, behind all that, the proverb and byword, let me give you an example. Give me Daniel chapter 1. I want the verse about their names. Daniel chapter 1. Daniel chapter 1, verse 6. Hold on. With the proverb and byword, we discussed, I showed you proof of nationality change. Now I want to show you your family names were changed. Read that.
Daniel chapter 1 and verse 6. Now among these were of the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names.
They gave us names. Watch this.
For he gave unto Daniel the name of Belteshazzar.
Belteshazzar, that was a god of Babylon. Go ahead.
And to Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael of Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego.
So when our people went into slavery, that's the proof. They changed our names. How does that relate to us today? All our names, whether your name is Johnson, Rodriguez, whatever funky little last name you got, it was given by your slave masters. Those are not our names, brothers and sisters. These are proverbs and bywords. Okay? Next slide, please. There we go. Yes, thank you. Okay, read verse 38 to 40. Let me see in Deuteronomy 20. Let's go back there.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 38. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the land, and shalt gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine. The worms shall eat them.
Right. Now, this is very important. These are actual photos of our people throughout North, Central, and South America who were forced to work in these crops, but our people never benefit from it. And this is what Captain Yashua was talking about. Many of these things that we harvested for the white man were exported to other places, refined, and then sold back to us at an astronomical rate. This is what the Bible is talking about. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, verse 41, please.
Verse 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, but they shall go into captivity.
So this occurred to us from 1492 all the way through the 1600s. Go ahead, next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, verse 43. Watch this.
43. The stranger that is within thee shall get above thee very high.
Remember when we fled out of Egypt? Other nations that was captive in Egypt fled out behind us. When we went in the wilderness, you had other nations among us, not in our midst, but on the outskirts of us. But God says to Moses, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high. This is why today, prophetically, the other nations come and far surpass us economically. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high. Read.
And thou shalt come down very low.
Look at the movie End of Poverty. It's a documentary. This is the third time mentioning it. Write it down. The End of Poverty. It's a documentary. Next verse.
He shall lend to thee.
So the strange nations will lend to us. Come on.
He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him.
We don't lend to the oppressors. We don't have banks and institutions like that to lend to him. Go ahead.
He shall be the head.
Now the nation shall be the head.
And thou shalt be the tail.
We the tail, meaning on the bottom. That's why I said when Moses is talking to us, he's talking to us as a nation of people, not an individual. For too long, we've thought of ourselves as individuals. We are not individuals. We are one nation of people. Our thoughts must begin to change and to think that and understand that. Because guess what? All the other nations deal as nations. Blacks and Latinos are the only ones that deal as individuals. That's why we never succeed as a group. Next slide, please. Verse 45, read that. No, verse 46. Read 46.
Verse 46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
So, in a slide clip, we have two pictures of signs. A sign is something that directs you. A sign is telling you something about either where you are, what you have to do, what you must do. So the curses of the Bible upon us are signs. Signs that we're what? Signs that we are the Israelites. Next slide, please. Verse 47.
47. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness, with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things.
Now, this verse is many times we just read by that verse, but let's look at it. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart. Meaning we didn't want to celebrate his God's holidays and keep his laws. For the abundance of all things. See that part? For the abundance of all things, meaning God gave us the planet Earth to rule. But because we didn't serve him with joyfulness and gladness, we didn't, like, Bishop, can I pull Isaiah 58:13 about call the Sabbath a what?
Delight.
A delight. We didn't want to do that. We said, no, we want to celebrate Sunday worship. God said, send them into slavery. They're disobedient. Take the earth from them. Make them the scourge of society. Make them a reproach to all nations. Next slide, please. Okay, go back. Verse 48. We read this earlier. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Here's some examples. Next slide. Okay, hunger. Some of you in here got an EBT card where you got to go purchase food from your enemies with your EBT card. Next slide. Thirst. We're reading about this in Lamentations. We got to get a water. The waters we got are my enemies. This is what the Bible's talking about. Next slide. Nakedness, meaning clothes. The clothes many of us got is made in China and Taiwan. Things of that nature. Some in Italy. Next slide, please. And in want of all things, meaning you want medicine, you want education, you want a home to live in, you want Social Security, you have to go to your enemies. So the Bible is so relevant today, it's up to us to make the Bible real to our people. Because they've been seeing the Bible as a myth, a fairy tale for too long. Next slide. These are the yokes of iron prophesied that would be upon our necks. Next slide, please. The Lord shall bring a nation. Come on, read that.
Verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth.
You know why this is important? The clip we saw with Christopher Columbus, they were on the other side of the earth. They were discussing bringing an armada to this side of the earth. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth. Come on, Palu.
As swift as the eagle flight.
What was the symbol of Spain, brothers?
Eagle.
The eagle. What's the symbol of America, brothers?
Eagle.
The eagle. Read.
A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
And to our Latin brothers and sisters, stop thinking you always spoke Spanish. You know how many times I hear that? He said, yeah, when Columbus came, he said, ¿Cómo está? We said, todo bien. That's a lie. You didn't speak that language.
And to prove that point, in that same book, Bartolomé de las Casas, what the Spaniards did, they did what's called a requerimiento, requirement. And they read it to them in Spanish. The book clearly says they read it to them in Spanish because they knew they couldn't understand Spanish. They knew we spoke Hebrew. And basically that requirement said that they were now taking over the Caribbean, our land. All right, so we never spoke Spanish. Never. That's why Columbus brought Hebrew translators like the brother brought out earlier.
Oh, crazy. That's right. That's right. Next slide, please. These are the ensigns of the nations, proving you that their symbols was the eagle. That's why I said it wasn't for just Babylon, because you'll read many Christian commentaries that will just stick you from Babylon. They will never go through the Greek captivity or Rome. Well, some of them do Rome. They don't do Greece, and then none of them do the Americas. But these are the symbols, the eagle. Next slide, please. Next slide. No, I like this one. And read verse 50.
Verse 50. A nation of fierce countenance.
So the white man did not come being nice to us. He did not bring democracy for us to have a right to vote. That was not the initial cause. Read it again.
A nation of fierce countenance.
That word fierce means horrible, terrible. Go ahead.
Which shall not regard the person of the old, or show favor to the young.
So they didn't care if we were old or young. They were killing us by the hundreds of thousands, enslaving us by the hundreds of thousands. Go ahead. And next slide. Okay, verse 61. Deuteronomy 28:61. I discussed AIDS, Ebola, and Zika earlier. Watch what verse 61 says.
Verse 61. Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law Then will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed.
So you have Ebola, you have AIDS, you have Zika, gonorrhea is not written in the Bible, herpes is not written in the Bible, syphilis is not written in the Bible. So the prophecy says these things will cleave unto us. Next slide. Right, see that Zika? See the baby's head not growing? These are the things, because many times we talk about plagues and disease and we keep it for way back then. No, these things is happening to us today. Remember when the white man caught Ebola? He said, oh, we got a cure. Blah! White man got cured. But none for the blacks. Oh, we ran out. There's no cure for you. We died. Now you got our people in Brazil and Colombia, South America catching Zika. Oh, I don't know how it got out of the CDC. I'm confused. How did it get inside the mosquitoes? It's in the Rockefeller Foundation. That's what you can Google Zika virus, and it tells you when it was patented in 1947. So if you patented that thing, how did it get out in mosquitoes? It was not by accident. It's by design. Next slide. Okay, these are various plagues. Like diabetes is another plague. Next slide. Go back. I got to read this. Read verse 64. Go ahead.
Verse 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other. And thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
So primarily our people are worshiping these Christian gods, which is not found in the Bible. Worshiping stone gods, wood god, of the Virgin of Guadalupe, for example. You have these crosses and rosary beads. Give me the next slide, please. Then you got this criminal here. There's criminal. See the bottom left? It says this book here, The Borgias, written by Marion Johnson. In that book, she shows you the sketches of Leonardo da Vinci doing the Renaissance Jesus. How he chose Caesar Borgia to be the model of the new Jesus Christ. This is in many bookstores and schools, but our people are taught not to read this stuff. This is not going to be found in a black section. This book is not going to be found in a Latin section. World history, look for the Judeo section, as some Spanish bookstores say, or the Jewish section. That's where these books will be found. Next slide. Okay, Caesar Borgia. He was the illegitimate son of Pope Alexander VI of Rome. Rodrigo Borgia was his name, and his long-term mistress, I can't even pronounce that Italian name. He is the model for the white image of Jesus Christ, replacing the true image and creating lasting confusion to our people of today. You ask any of our people, prove to us in the Bible that Jesus Christ is a white man. None of them can do it. From your pope to your preachers to your pastors, none of them. The little knowledge we got, brothers and sisters, is greater than the earth can imagine. We take this knowledge we got for granted, but it can shut things down. This is why when they invite us on some news outlets, they say, don't read out the Bible. Just talk. Don't use the Bible, though. Why? Why? Because they said, one radio show said to me, you'll offend many of our sponsors if you read out the Bible. So just talk off the top of your head. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, y'all see this verse here? And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt, which means captivity, again with ships. Ask the white man who calls himself a Jew, did you as a people go into slavery on ships? What is the answer? No. No. So none of these curses we're reading about fits the white man that calls himself Jewish. He's an imposter. Everything we're reading fits blacks, Latinos, Native American Indians. Read, Paulo.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
Egypt means captivity. It said again with what?
With ships.
With what?
With ships.
With ships, meaning cargo slave ships. Watch, it's going to prove it.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
You wouldn't see our homeland or identity again. Okay?
And there,
meaning there, once you got off the slave ships, what would happen?
Ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
You shall be sold unto your enemies. Yes, that happened from the time of Babylon, but guess what? It happened here in America. It happened in North, Central, South America as well. Read.
For bondmen.
Bondmen means slave men.
And bondwomen.
Slave women.
And no man shall buy you.
No man shall buy you, meaning no man shall save you. Watch this next slide. Now, this is what we're all familiar with. The blacks that came over on slave ships. So yes, that fits Bible prophecy. Yes, that proves we're Israelites. Next slide. See, slave ships, Negroes being sold. We all know this history very well. Next slide. What we never talk or rarely talk about is Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, who sent Columbus here to bring back slaves to serve the Catholic Church. We never talk about or rarely talk. Very few teachers I see you up to my yard here. Very few of us even talk about that part of the history. Next slide. Columbus viewed the Taínos themselves as a way to amass his personal wealth. He selected 500 to be exported to Spain as slaves and 500 to serve as slaves to the Spanish on the island. Columbus proudly boasted to the Spanish monarchs about the slave potential and its economic benefits. How did they get to Spain? On ships, in schools, the school systems that are set up. They don't tell us that. We'll read about Columbus and say he was a good man. You go to Santo Domingo, you see icons of Christopher Columbus, statues of him. People honor him. That demon, that's like honoring Adolf Hitler. Oh, now they'll be shocked. Saying they were both genocidal maniacs. The slave potential and its economic benefits, Columbus would capture and export more Indian slaves, about 5,000, than any other single individual. In addition to capturing the Indians as slaves, now the Indians are, as we know, Israelites. The Spanish also hunted the Indians for sport. I'll read that again. The Spanish also hunted the Indians for sport and slaughtered them for dog food. The Spanish also viewed Taino women as their sex slaves. Next slide. Okay. When you look up, if you Google it, you can Google Native American Indians sold as slaves. They'll show you old articles of Indians being sold on Wall Street right alongside blacks and put on ships and sent here, near, and far. Okay, now this is a very interesting book. You can all buy this. I bought my copy of this book a few months ago. Origins of the American Indians. Now, what I want y'all to see, do me a favor, highlight, where is it? The second paragraph where it says the owner. Listen good to what this says. This is on page 88 of this book. Read this. Come on, somebody. Who reading for me?
The only writer this author found who accepted the Issachar variation of the 10 lost tribes. Theory was Belteshazzar in Medina. In his Crónica de la Santa Provincia de San Diego de Mexico of 1682. Although Medina, 1682, thought the South Americans and Yucatecans were descendants of the Gentile Iton, that's how you pronounce it, father of Ophir.
Watch this.
The Mexicans,
The Mexicans, go ahead,
are originally of the 10 tribes captured by Salmanasar.
The Mexicans are originally of the 10 tribes captured by who?
Salmanasar.
Salmanasar. You read about that in Esdras. Watch what it says now.
Of the family of Issachar.
And they are the family of Issachar. So the white man put this together and knows the Mexicans descend from the family of Issachar. So many times people go, oh, we don't get the 12 tribe breakdown. We don't believe that. It's not just based upon biblical facts, but ancient historic records. Get the book yourself and read it. Now, Ronald Sanders chronicled the Spanish conquistadors' writings. That's what he did. Watch this, read.
The woman got off and spoke to Francisco in an Indian tongue. That Montesinos could not understand.
Watch.
Although he could perceive that he was being identified in the conversation. She then turned to her male companions to explain the situation. Upon hearing her words, they rose, went over to Mentezinos, and to his utter astonishment, said, Shema, Yisrael, Adonai Elohim, Adonai Ehad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
So the Indians rose and spoke in Hebrew. Read.
Narrative, as is that of his three mysterious new companions. They told him that they were themselves of the tribe of Reuben.
They told him that they were of the tribe of Reuben. Go ahead.
And that the tribe of Joseph lived.
And that the tribe of Joseph, which is Manasseh and Ephraim, go ahead,
on an island nearby.
Or on an island nearby. Was that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So what I'm saying is the 12 tribe, as people call it, the 12 tribe chart, is based upon the Bible first and foremost. But we have documentation to justify what we're saying. When you get these other idiots, oh, I don't accept them. No, I don't accept that. I don't care what you accept. We're going to tell you what God says.
Shalom, Israel. I'm Elder Nathaniel of Israel United in Christ. YouTube likes to shut our channels down, as some of you have noticed, ever so often. Subscribing to join IUIC will assure you will always stay connected to our YouTube accounts. We want to do our best to make sure this truth gets out. Please click and join our subscriber YouTube channel called Join IUIC to stay linked to all of our videos. So again, please make sure you subscribe to this Join IUIC channel to get your latest updates from all our YouTube channels. Shalom.